Thank you. That was very kind. I'm in esteemed company. I see Johan and Rahul and all these very experienced people. So I hope I can add a little bit of value to what this is all about. I'm going to talk about business models that I see emerging based on my experience today. And I've called it the AI rocket fuel, is what I put on the screen. So the most common thing that happens is I meet data scientists and AI engineers, and they will do mental karate with me about the best algorithm that's going to solve the problem. But not a lot of people are focused on how do you commercialize this, whether you're a massive corporate or a new startup, which is a few weeks old. So I want to share a little bit with you guys. I have 3 things I want to speak about today in the next 20 minutes. Let me just look down to start timing myself. I want to speak about converging technologies because AI cannot be seen in isolation. It's the granddaddy of all the converging technologies in terms of the speed at which it changes. I want to speak a bit about exponential capabilities and businesses that we've studied around the world and built. And then I want to chat a little bit about 7 or 8 business models that I think might be worthwhile paying attention to in the next decade. So we are coming out of a pandemic and it's not fun, but I think that the next decade is going to be amazing. Optimism, not fear, is the word I put here. And you might wonder, Alistair, why are you talking about optimism with all this tough stuff happening in business? I have a quote from Peter Diamandis, someone that I've worked with previously in the US. He founded Singularity University, and he says, in the next decade, we'll experience more progress than the past 100 years. So this is why I think it is amazing. It's not just about the technology and the science. It's the capability to build brand new businesses that didn't exist. So I launched a business 3 weeks ago. It's called taskrocket.io. And it's based on this principle and the next slide. So we eat our own dog food, or depending if you work in professional circles, you might say we fly our own jets, but I prefer to say we eat our own dog food. So I practice what I preach in terms of what we put out there. What I want to highlight to you guys is today we're speaking about item number 16, AI, ML, deep learning. I'll put that on the right, and this is not new to this community. The most immense power is the convergence of all of these Gutenberg moments. Now, Gutenberg was, when the printing press was issued, the world had access to information, and that changed everything because now you can share information about whatever you like right around the world using a printing press. Now we have about 25, 26, it's actually moved up to about 30 in the past 1.5 years, if I think of the technologies I've seen. And this will create new businesses that don't exist today. And I'm seeing some of them emerge, and I'm going to share that with you in the next few slides. So massive change requires some kind of a tool set that can deal with this. I've put something here which is called an exponential organization canvas. For those people that are used to building businesses from scratch, this is an advancement on the business model canvas that you would have seen from Strategizer previously. And this is based on a study and working with and implementing and changing 130 to 140 organizations all around the world, which includes Facebook, Airbnb, Google, and a bunch of others. And the answer to that equation is that when you build a business, there are 11 things that you look at today to harness the power of exponential technologies. There's a reason why I'm focusing on exponential technologies and not just AI, because AI, every time you go to a conference, you hear AI is the new electricity, and yes, it is. And I'm going to get to some of that detail now. But there's a way that you harness abundance on the left-hand side, and you manage abundance for profitability on the right-hand side, which I've put there. For those folks that might be interested in learning, so what is an exponential organization? How do you define it? It's an organization whose impact is disproportionately large and will generate 10x compared to its peers in an industry. So in the South African or African context, if you were to look at telecommunications, banking, and startups, for example, 10% is dead. That, like, the world is on its head at the moment because of the pandemic, and we've accelerated maybe 5 or 6 years of digital transformation in 4 or 5 months. So I think this is quite important to pay attention to, in terms of you can transform into a new organization by looking at the edge of your business, and edge is different to core, and you need to do some experimentation. But this is what an EXO is. It is different to other organizations, and the way that you measure it is impact and profitability. There are 7 things that are worth looking out for, which are attributes. And this is based not only on my personal observation, but companies that I've built and helped other people build as well. The impact is 10x. So if you do a benchmark looking at the JSE or startups or other small companies, and they earn 100 Rand or $100, you will generate 10x of that. Some part of the business is digitized. From our prior experience, you would normally find that about 70% of that business is designed to be digitized from the ground up from day one. It's usually a platform. I see massive activity taking place around 2- and 3-sided digital marketplaces worldwide, and I'm going to give you some examples of that. These businesses leverage accelerating technologies. I just want to hone in a little bit on that. So if you look at there was a Stanford study that came out in April, and they showed that Moore's law is dead when it comes to AI. It's normally 18 months that you'll have like some kind of doubling in that technology in terms of capability or speed or delivery. Today, that number is 3 months. And I'm quite happy to share that with the audience after this call, and send it around. There's a QR code at the end. You can have a look. So the capability of AI in terms of computing power and output and change, it will double every 3 months. And that was as at April this year. So I think it's very important to pay attention to building AI as a service, which you use different stacked layers to build a business up. If you're a business person, don't like code and hire people that are going to do all this stuff. Bring that in and design a business which is modular, which will add stacked layers on top of each other. All right, so I won't go through the rest of the detail here, but new business models are what I'm going to get to shortly. This busy slide is meant to show 2 things. On the left-hand side, if you can please cast your attention to the word scale. That's an acronym for how you access abundance. Accessing abundance will give you the keys to how you will create 10x impact and profit, which is return, but it's not even return on investment, it's impact and profit. On the right-hand side is how you would manage that. Now, I'm going to share these slides and not spend a lot of time on this text, but the one thing I want to tell you is I've seen businesses become very successful when they start with this thing in the middle, which is called a massive transformative purpose. I have a real life startup, which is a full 3 weeks old, TaskRocket.io. I mentioned it earlier. Its purpose is to enable economic freedom for everyone. And we started here in Johannesburg. We work in 6 countries now, and it's taken us 3 weeks to do that. And we were driven by purpose before we introduced robots and AI, natural language processing, generation, and understanding. So what I wanted to bring to your attention is that the power of AI can be used across all of these dimensions. So staff on demand, you will notice you see things like TaskRocket, TaskRabbit, Fiverr, Upwork, and things like that. Algorithms, yes. I mean, this is not new. The previous 2 speakers have given a lot of detail about that. But my question is, how do you take algorithms and add it to every single part of the business that you own? So not just HR, but finance, recruitment, supply chain, financing, credit scoring, and things like that. The message of this slide is not to overload you with information. It's to say this is a tried and tested recipe on how to build an exponential organization, of which AI is one big component on the left, which is algorithms. So I'm going to speak quickly about 7 things. Let's see, 9 minutes here. I'm going to speak about the crowd economy, the free and data economy as a business model, the smartness economy, closed loop, which is recycling. I'm going to chat a little bit about DAOs. So personally, very close to my heart is decentralized autonomous organizations. I'm working with one right now in the US. It's called OpenEXO. They have 6,000 people around the world in maybe 70 or 80 countries. And we are doing the first experiment of how you can create a company with no employees and decentralized governance, where you participate as an employee, as a shareholder. So one of the first or nascent kind of business models I'm seeing that is got quite a lot of traction. Multiple world models. I'm going to speak a bit about AR, VR, transformation economy. And then item number 8 is not a business model, but the power of network effects, which basically comes from Jim Collins a couple of years ago, but it's the Amazon model of how you reinforce customer behavior to bring other customers into your business. Very, very important in a platform world. And in the space of AI, where you recommend between each other, and you use, for example, natural language processing, generation, understanding across languages to attract new customers on these new business models I've highlighted here. So the crowd economy, some of these things won't be new to you, but my big message is the next 10 years, this is the sort of stuff that we see emerging or embedded in society in terms of the way that business will work. So crowdsourcing, crowdfunding. I've seen crowdsourcing of knowledge, leveraging of assets. I've met and created businesses where you own zero. Your balance sheet is zero, which sounds crazy. When you go to accountants and people who fund businesses, even venture capitalists, they'll be like, how can you have no assets? A very good example of this would be Kaggle. I've put at the bottom here Airbnb, TaskRabbit, Upwork, and others. But the point of this is that you leverage the power of access to not just millions, but billions of people around the planet that can fund things, or they can give you knowledge, or they can share. So this is the equivalent of a share economy without having to own assets. Free and data economy. So in the 1920s and the 1950s, there was like bait and switch. Come in and like get this cool razor, and then you're going to spend the rest of your life paying for Gillette, Alistair. It's actually quite expensive. This is the equivalent model with data. So what you do is you'll give free access to a technology product, which is quite cool, but you use that data elsewhere in a different part of the economy to make money. So I've put something here which is called micro demographics, and specifically psychographic data. Apple are really good at psychographic data in terms of understanding your consumer profile and then shipping that off into other adjacent business model industries. What this means is that you can create a business where you make money from other industries, not your own, but you use the data to harvest insights for other industries that you want to sell it to. The smartness economy. So I'm going to jump straight to the answer. In the early 1900s, when electricity became a thing, we used to drill by hand. Like we had these windy things, and then you added electricity. Now you had a power drill. We used to wash by hand, and then we added electricity. Now you had a washing machine. The same thing is going to be happening with AI, because what you will do is you will infuse AI as a smartless layer on top of everything that exists. What's important is that this will become part of everything. So here, I mean, in my home, I have like smartness devices and cameras. I can talk to Alexa. She tells me jokes in the morning. I make my coffee. She can order things. You can add IoT intelligence to mining, to fishing, to banking, to many different kinds of industries. And this is available in South Africa right now. So I've put examples here of Amazon, because I think they have the most sophisticated logistics network anywhere on planet Earth. They manage 40,000 products per day. Salesforce have something called Salesforce Einstein. And what that will do is recommend customer strength relationships to you based on what you type. People in the field, when you give feedback, insights, cycle sales, and things like this. There's a lot of good intelligence sitting there, which adds smartness to the old sales cycle. Closed loop economies are quite important. So I'm going to focus just on one thing. It's called biomimicry. About 4 or 5 months ago, I had absolutely no idea what biomimicry is. And then I met a doctor from Germany, and he taught me how to use machine learning with human behavior and forests. Crazy story, but it's real. This is how you create economies that will be recommended around supply chain. Johan spoke about supply chain a little bit earlier. Now, what happens in a biomimicry environment is that you'll get a recommendation of using, for example, 3D printing and closed loop economies that will feed into a system that creates something which has a zero footprint on our planet. So this is going to become something quite big in the next couple of years. Since 2013, Plastic Bank have been doing this. At the bottom, I put the example there. And smart cities. About 3 weeks ago, I saw the first South African example of a smart city proposal between Johannesburg and Pretoria. It was just thrown out there from one of the hackathons I went into. Very interesting to see what is coming out of that, because they're just starting with a clean state. And I think closed loop economies might be a very good way to find work for both the lower end and the higher end of the economy in South Africa. Right, my personal favorite, a DAO. This is wild. This is an organization which has no employees, and it has robots. And so we've spoken quite a bit about RPA. RPA are the dumb robots that sit in the background that will manipulate and move data around. But the whole thing is that you will take centralized governance and you will distribute that into a network. And you will run your entire business on the blockchain, and you will use narrow artificial intelligence to make decisions. And your employees can be anybody in the world. They can participate for 1 hour. They can participate for 10 years if they like. But you are basically creating an empty shell of an organization that can exist where humans work with robots, DAOs. Please have a look at DAOstack.io. One of the best examples of this today is OpenEXO. I'm working with these guys right now, and they're trying to transform 6,000 humans today, dotted around the world, into a distributed autonomous organization which is run by AI. So it's quite a nice, interesting social experiment. What it does is it democratizes knowledge, and it removes democracy. It removes the bureaucracy. You also have, there's no managers. There's no bosses. You're all equal when you work in an organization like this. So this is a progression of where I see society being headed today. Quite interesting in terms of profit sharing. So you're never classed as an employee. You're classed as a contributor. Then multiple world models. I don't think this is going to be overly new to everybody in the team. But you have, so for example, I have a real world persona. I'm sitting on this call today with you. My name is Alistair, and I'm talking with you. But I also have some avatars that I've created. I'm training some other robots. For example, I use replica.ai. For those people that haven't used it yet, please go visit him/her/it. And you can train them using natural language processing, generation, and understanding. And you will have an avatar which understands you and can be your friend, or it can be a replica of you. Verbella is another very important outfit. Please go and have a look at them. I've put them at the bottom. Creating virtual worlds in business, which means that we're all sitting at home, but this is for example, I use Verbella with Singularity. This is a virtual campus. Some universities go there, some business schools. I see Deloitte inside there. And a few others. They run their whole business in a new virtual world, which means that you have yourself and a machine that never sleeps, and the machine learns from you and it learns from others. A little bit abstract, but it's real. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is transformation economy. I have 1.5 minutes here. This is all about the customer experience. So Johan spoke about his cell phone and he wished that somebody would get hold of him and make a recommendation. This is the transformation economy. So if we had cell phone 1.0 or 2.0 that actively pushed new information to Johan and said to him, hey, do you know that you've got these 5 different options here? And if you want to cut your bill, maybe you want like a cheaper phone, but the specifications are higher. You can get a Huawei, you can get a whatever it is. This is all about taking a customer on a journey and they transform over time. What they do in this business model is they walk a journey with you. And this is typically a subscription model, not a once-off. It's a subscription experience model where people pay you money to transform their lives over a period of time. Thank you. 4 seconds. I made it in time. If you want to scan the QR code at the bottom, please do so. I'll answer any questions that you guys have or send you information.